Hello, I'm Kimberlie Acosta. Welcome to the Native News Update. It's Friday, December 10th, and many of the stories you hear here can be found at our website. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The jury hearing the case against John Graham, who was charged in the 1975 slaying of Native American rights activist Annie Mae Aquash, has found Graham guilty of aiding and abetting first-degree murder. And today we talk with Annie Mae Aquash's nephew, Mark Akwash. Hi Mark, I understand that you are now an educator known as Dr. Akwash, but 35 years ago you were with and around your auntie Annie Mae Aquash and the American Indian movement. And now that you have spent the last 1 or 2 days listening to the closing arguments, what is your observation with everything you've seen?
Well, just want to say bonjour and greetings to everyone listening. I just wanted to indicate that, this has been a real eye-opening experience for me. I grew up in the American Indian movement and have, I believe, the same lies that everybody else has. And over these years, during the investigation and the subsequent trials, a lot of information has emerged, and I've really it's really opened my eyes to see the truth that has been in the shadows for so long. And I believe a lot of people are starting to see that truth as well. I read it. I read it in the articles. I see people writing about the information that is being generated and coming out. People aren't afraid to talk about the truth anymore. So I also believe these lies that were that probably have been out there far too long, and it's been not much of a healing experience, but more of a painful experience. Where first I denied it, and said, they got to be lying. The people that are telling the truth have to be lying. So it was real difficult, and now that I've seen exactly what took place back 35 years ago, it really makes a lot of sense, and I'm getting over the anger and the pain, but it also is a process of closure as well, and seeking justice. I had a real good relationship with my aunt as well as my uncle, and they made a major impact on my life. And if I hadn't traveled with them back in the early 70s, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today, and being successful and with my education. So I really find myself fortunate, but also I miss them, and I miss many of the people that were the true leaders of the American Indian movement back in those days, and I certainly miss Annie Mae.
Who were the true leaders in your eyes?
There were a lot of women that were that had the smarts to put in funding proposals and writing developing different kinds of policies and things like that, and programs, and those things are still around today. So the processes of culturally based education, those were the kind of things that Annie Mae, she really fought for that, and today we take that for granted. And I think many of our communities are fortunate to have these kinds of programs available for our young people, because it has made a major impact on young people, especially in processes of decolonization, where we're able to take out some of the Eurocentric kinds of information within our communities and replace it with our own indigenous or our First Nations or American Indian tribal kinds of practices, so that we can have a sense of our own identity rather than having somebody else's history. We have our own history. So.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with us, or could you tell us a little bit about your experience with hanging out with your auntie?
Well, I just wanted to let let everybody know that I feel that same pain and that feeling of loss when the truth is revealed. That it's hard, it's difficult to accept, and one of the things that really comes to my mind is. I learned how to pray, and I learned how to burn smudge, and that's one of the things that my auntie taught me, and that was one of the first things that I can remember when I look back during those days. That she was burning smudge, and I asked her what she was doing, and she explained it to me, and so that's one of the personal memories that I have of her specifically, and that's something that I practice today, and especially in her memory.
Well, thank you for joining me, and I wish you everyone the best of luck out there with the verdict that comes back. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Whiteshirt.
And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. In an ironic twist of history, a flag carried into battle against American Indians 135 years ago was sold on December 10th at an auction, raising $1.9 million to bolster the Native American Arts Department of the Detroit Institute of the Arts. The Culbertson Guidon, the 7th Cavalry Standard recovered from General George Armstrong Custer's Battle of Little Bighorn, sold quickly at the auction house in New York City. The Guidon, considered more of a historical artifact than art, was purchased by the Detroit Museum of Art 119 years ago for $54 and was preserved behind glass. It was then passed on to the Detroit Institute of the Arts. The tattered, torn, some might also say wounded red, white, and blue silk Guidon was found by Sergeant Fred Culbertson beneath the body of Colonel John Fowley on June 28, 1876, 3 days after the battle in Montana. A Tulsa, Oklahoma police officer received a National Award of Valor December 9th for pulling a man with a bullet wound on a porch to medical personnel while a live shooter was in the home. Officer Jim Whiteshirt, a 31-year veteran, received the National Native American Law Enforcement Award of Valor at a ceremony at the Tulsa Police Department headquarters. On April 28, 2009, Whiteshirt responded to a shooting where a man was shot in the chest and lying on the front porch. Because the suspect was still inside the residence, the first responders were not able to leave cover and approach the victim. Whiteshirt and 3 other officers went into action to help save the man. While one officer drew his gun and took position to cover the front door, Whiteshirt and 2 other officers pulled the victim from the porch and got him to medical crews. The Minneapolis School District will spend more than $1 million on 105 Native American students in the next 4 years to make sure that they graduate from high school. The Minneapolis Public School District was awarded a $1.2 million grant, one of 9 demonstration grants by the U.S. Department of Education. School district officials say the grants will pay for an individualized mentoring program for all 9th graders in the district called College Prep. The program was established by the district's Indian Education Department and a consortium of Native American community groups. The district's Indian Education Department will contract with 4 agencies, which include the McGeezy Communications, Division of Indian Work, Little Earth, and Minneapolis American Indian Center to provide mentoring services. 5 Native Americans from western South Dakota reservations have been chosen to be a part of the second cohort of the Bushes Foundation's Native Nations Rebuilders program. 19 leaders from various tribes met for the first time December 8th in St. Paul, Minnesota, to start a 2-year commitment dedicated to Native American self-determination and finding sustainable solutions to the tough problems that Native people and nations face. The 5 chosen to participate are Lisa Schrader Dillon, Health Administrator of the Oglala Sioux Tribe; Nick Tilson, Founder and Executive Director of the Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation; Cheryl Ann Carey, currently serving as the Executive Director of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, where she oversees tribal programs; Benny Janis, Lower Brule Department of Wildlife, Fish and Recreation Director; and Francis Big Crow, Program Director of the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Child Care and Development Program. The Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community was honored with a Jefferson Award for Philanthropy at the Celebrate Twin Cities Awards reception on December 1st at the St. Paul Hotel. Vice Chairman Glenn Crooks accepted the award on behalf of the tribal community. From the 12 regional winners selected over the past year, the Shakopee was chosen as the overall national winner for 2010 from that region. Over the past 13 years, the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community has donated more than $192.7 million to charitable organizations, Indian tribes, and Native American organizations. The tribe has also made more than $389 million in loans to other tribes for economic development projects. As one of the national winners, the Shakopee will receive the Jefferson Award at a special ceremony in Washington, D.C. in June, along with a handful of other winners from across the country. A rare Native American canoe, thought to be more than 250 years old, has been found on a city estate in Cornwall, England. The birch bark canoe was discovered in a barn on the Ennis estate. It is believed that the Canadian boat was brought to the Cornwall by Lieutenant John Ennis, who fought in Quebec during the American War of Independence. The canoe will be preserved and put on display for the public at the National Maritime Museum in Falmouth before being repatriated to Canada. Historians believe that the boat could possibly be one of the oldest birch bark canoes in existence. The canoe will be repatriated in the fall, and the Canadian Canoe Museum will carry out further research on where the boat may have been built and by which tribe. The canoe is expected to go on display at the National Maritime Museum in late January. And that's the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and have a grand day.